Welcome to the Funnel Reboot Podcast with your host, Glenn Schmeltzley. Let's get into today's show.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the show for analytically minded marketers. And today we'll talk about a channel most people have a hard time generating leads with. Let's get straight into today's show. One thing that professional services and solo subject matter experts struggle with is building an audience and influencing their purchases. Creating a content marketing engine that achieves this can take an agonizingly long time, years even. But virtual events that are properly marketed seem able to shorten that time span. My guest has refined a program that develops virtual events for clients, and over the past 3 years, it has accelerated post-event prospect discussions and sales success. He grew up in Kentucky and graduated from Campbellsville University there, and he now calls Florida home. Let's go speak with Michael Tucker. Welcome to the show, Michael.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Glenn.
Sure thing. So we have a lot of ways where we can try and use content to get the interest of our prospects and bring them along in looking and evaluating the choices that they have that culminate in a purchase. You have a particular way that you like to deliver that content for maximum effect. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, we use virtual events in our funnels to take people from cold customers and to really bring them to hot buyers. Virtual events have been something that we've been doing for about 4 to 5 years now. I think about 5 years, and we've had a lot of success with it. So excited to share with you guys how we use virtual events in our funnel process.
That's great. So clearly, just like any other digital marketing channel, we have something that we can put out, something that we can also see back the indicators of interest from our audience. You say that events will signal to us a higher likelihood of conversion or maybe a higher level of engagement. Uh, what makes you say that? What kind of specifics do you see from that? Um, and that could include the final results of getting sales. But what, you know, also at a granular layer, do you see that tells you that it was the event that had that impact?
Yeah, and we've ran a lot of marketing, campaigns over the past 5 to 6 years. As I got into digital marketing, as most of your listeners, and I'm sure you have experimented with lots of different avenues. A lot of times, there's things that you can implement but take time, right? So, for example, email marketing. Email marketing, you can do that, and it's a great tool because we use that as well. But, it takes a little longer to take somebody from a cold customer to a hot buyer, especially if you're selling a high ticket program or something that is, more than a few $1,000s. It takes a little time to build that trust. And so we use virtual events. We love it because we can put them through a specific process and send them through a 5-day event. And in literally days, build enough trust and enough credibility with them that they would be comfortable buying a high ticket product from us. So I know you guys are big on analytics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, looking at this from a high level overview, we say that normally the way we structure our events, and it just depends on which route you go, because there's 2 different models we play with, but we can convert sometimes up to 20 to 25% of people who attend an event into a high ticket program. That's not even including the low ticket products, right? So just in a high
Okay.
ticket product alone, we can
Yep.
convert up to 20 to 25%.
Yeah, that's kind of compelling. So let's start to take this at a more granular level. When it comes to events, you obviously have, a pre-event, you have, the event itself, and then you have post-event. So in the pre-event, um, I think if people could get the kind of results you're talking about, they'd be interested in setting up an event so that we get the highest number of attendees where we can get that result. But there's the question. How do we get those attendees?
Great question. There's many, many different avenues, as you and I are both aware. But one of our favorite avenues for driving registrants into our virtual events is strategic collaborations, or strategic partnerships, right? And I think it just depends on where you and your business, or if you're working for someone else, it depends on what you guys have at hand, right? Because we do utilize all kinds of organic marketing. We do use ads, right? So we use all these avenues to drive people to our events. But one of our favorite is utilizing other people's audiences to fill up our events.
Okay.
Meaning that we will go and run an event. Let's say you, Glenn, you wanted to run an event. You would go and advertise that event to my audience, right? And so
Yeah.
actually, that's how I started out with virtual events. Is we had a client, and he had no list, no money for ad spend, and we said, okay, how are we going to do this? And so we just started
Hmm.
asking around. We started asking people, hey, you know, your audience may benefit from what we teach. Would you be okay with us coming in and doing a joint event together where we just come and teach your audience or educate your audience on one subject? And we found a few people that said okay, and so we just ran an event to other people's audiences and split those funds that were made, and
Hmm.
we were very successful that way. So there's a plethora of marketing channels that we use, but strategic partnerships have been really well for us.
Okay. And so that's a good way, because you can affiliate with each other. Hopefully, you'll learn at least if the audience is conducive to your message, given how they followed your partner. Um, when it comes to maybe using broader things like social media, so every social network's gotten into the event game. Do you also let people sign in through those methods? Do you ever make that the main promotion channel for how you get an event? How does that work?
Yeah, and yeah, we definitely do, and I think that's definitely something as you do more and more events, you have to get more creative with which avenues you're using, right? Because as you and I are both aware, once your first event, you're going to get a lot of people on social media signing up because we do
Yep.
use Instagram, we do use TikTok, Facebook, all these avenues to drive registrants. But after that first event, it's going to be harder to run that event again, right? Unless you teach on a totally different topic or you change the branding. But a lot of our clients are like, hey, I just want to run the same exact one. So then you have to
Right.
start getting
Right.
into more paid traffic. But yes, we do definitely utilize Facebook. For us, something that's working really good right now is automations on Instagram and Facebook. So if you have
Okay.
which I know you guys may use this or may not, but using like ManyChat or Mobile Monkey to drive traffic from a Facebook page or an Instagram profile over to your DMs where you can send them information for them to sign up. So for those of you that aren't familiar with ManyChat, it's pretty simple. You guys would be really, really able to set this up within minutes. You just pretty much go in and set up an automation where if somebody comments on a post, like a certain keyword, it would send them an automated message. And so that's something that we'll do is we'll have our clients, let's just imagine they're running an event and they're promoting on social media. We'll have them give out value content, and then we'll
Hmm.
say at the end of that value content, have a call to action with them to comment a keyword. And so when somebody does comment that keyword, it triggers an automation in their DMs that says like, "Hey, it's Michael. Seen you're interested in our class. Drop your email below and we'll get you registered." And all that people have to do is they never have to leave Instagram. They can just drop their email or their phone number in the Instagram chat, and we can zap that sucker right over into our CRM.
Ah, got it. So we have, I think a good way in what you've already outlined to see a healthy quantity of people who are signing up. Here we come to the quality. And at least in my experience, one of the things that you want to treat differently is when we're having something that is geared for more of a senior leadership level than, just all comers, including juniors. So, what different strategies can you suggest for trying to target those particular segments? Um, I mean, I guess one would be that the topic itself has to be oriented for them, but is there anything else that you would do to either make sure that you reach them or indeed perhaps qualify them to see if they're the right kind of person to attend this event?
Great question. Yes, what you said around the messaging, the copy, that's 100% true. You need to have that dialed in, right? But then also on the back end, something else we know, and this can get in a big rabbit hole, right? But it may be a rabbit hole you want to go down. So people who pay attention, right? A lot of times, the higher level people that you're talking about, Glenn, they're not going to show up on a free class because they're thinking, oh, a free class, it's just going to give out a bunch of fluff, not enough information. So a lot of times these people are more willing to pay because there's something with monetary exchange, right?
Okay.
That triggers more value. So sometimes it could be putting a price tag on that event, right? Some of our events, they range from $97 all the way up to $1,000, right? It just depends on the type of event and what you're going to be teaching. So I think not only the messaging and the copy that you use, but also the value you create within. And part of that value can be determined by the price tag you put on it. So I think that would be one avenue as well. And this is something else I would actually throw in there because a lot of people disregard it, is don't forget about the redheaded stepchild, LinkedIn, right? A lot of people,
Uh-huh.
I think of the social media of Facebook, Instagram, all that, but LinkedIn is where a lot of those high level people live. And so, I not live, but they play in that
Hmm.
arena. So
Hmm.
don't forget to utilize that as well if you are building that following. If not, go ahead and be creating that LinkedIn space because a lot of those high level executives or people that you want to target are there.
Right. And this is something that, kind of like you said about having a list, it's harder to game, right? Because you're letting the social proof that you get from other people on LinkedIn, either following or voting up previous things that you've done. So um, I don't think our listeners are taking from what you say that, virtual or events are the only thing that you need to do. It complements all of the other things you already should be doing.
Yep, 100%. And this is just another tool in the tool belt, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of our clients, they have other avenues. They have sales teams. They have multiple departments running and multiple streams of marketing. But this is just another way to do this. And so some of our clients, Glenn, they'll run, depending on the amount of lead flow, right? They'll run an event per month.
Yep.
They'll run one a quarter or they'll do just two a year. It all depends on your amount of lead flow, and then your bandwidth as well, because running a virtual event can take a lot of bandwidth from your team and your leadership, right? So you want to make sure that you have the bandwidth to actually knock that out efficiently and effectively.
Sure. So coming back for a second to this, charging for event, I mean, my head is going to, does this still fit in the same regular hour-long container that we're used to seeing events go? Does it have the same format as other events? Just help me understand when we're doing this, how we are making this enough value so that they will charge for it. And, is this actual hard cash or are we charging them and then perhaps having a offer inside of our event that says to them that this could roll towards some credit on a higher cap item?
Great question. And so, actually, what we specialize in, Glenn, is running the 5 day challenge model. And so, you may be familiar with that. You may not be, but the 5 day challenge model is pretty much a 5 day event, right? We've condensed
Okay.
those down to 3 days for people that are like, well, I don't know if my audience will sit through 5 days of training. There is the 3 day works just as well, but for what we do, we focus on the 5 day model. And so we take people for a training series over
Yep.
five days straight for an hour a day. Okay. And so this just allows us to build that credibility faster, like I mentioned at the beginning. And so we'll step in and we'll take them on Monday through Friday through a series of trainings. And it's not just content, right? It's really methodical content we're taking them through to help them get closer to their goals, right? So for example, if it's how to, you're running an event on how to build a sales force, we would take them through a methodical process to get them closer to that goal. So at the very end, we can sell them a product. So yes, Glenn, even if people are paying $500 or $300 on the front end, we will add in a product on the back end to sell. We've sold products from $3,000 all the way up to $75,000 through this model. And so if you do it the right way, even though people pay on the front end, they will pay on the back end as well. And so this is a great qualifier, because you were asking the qualification process. People who come in and pay $300, they're a different type of breed than people who come in and are signing up for a free event, right? So
they're either that, or even if they are the same person, they're in a completely different world when we look at their intent. They're intending to, as you say, achieve a certain goal, or maybe have the credentials, maybe even the confidence of having gone through a week-long event to understand better how they're going to reach their goal.
Exactly. You nailed it right on the head. So one thing I would throw out there, and this is just a little tip, something we do that's super simple, but can help with that qualification process, is before the event even begins, we'll go ahead and send out just a simple survey. Nothing too long, just a little survey to all the attendees saying, hey, we just want to make sure we're curating content that's the best for you. So fill out this quick 4-question survey. Your name, what industry you're in, maybe it depends on your event, right? What your current income is, and just maybe what you're struggling with right now in your business or whatever industry that is. And that allows us to collect data. So before the event even begins, we can kind of say, okay, John, he's making $100,000 a year already. Glenn, he's already making 7 figures a year. And so we can actually assign those surveys over to our sales team and say, hey, here are all the qualified buyers before the event even begins. And so, once our event happens, so during the event and after the event, our sales teams know who to have conversations with, right? Because we can prioritize those conversations based on the survey they filled out.
Okay. All right. So imagining that we're gearing towards this kind of a paid event, we clearly have to bring that kind of content that would warrant, the value that we're claiming it has. How do we make all that content? 5 hours of material seems like a daunting task.
Yeah, great question. And a lot of people ask, Michael, I'm afraid I'm going to give out too much. and I say this not to sound mean, but if you're afraid of you're going to give out 5 hours of information and you're not going to have enough, you probably don't know enough on your topic. You may need to, get better at your craft, right? But I think the way we build these out is very methodical, and you don't spend a total of 5 hours teaching. Day one, what we normally do is we go into your origin story, and we go into a lot of mindset, right? Because there's going to be people coming into your event, and they're going to come in with different mindset limitations. They're going to come in with different perceptions on your industry. So, for example, this is just a random topic. I've never done this before, but if I was going to run an event in a solar industry, right, people are probably going to come in on day one thinking certain thoughts about solar, right? It's too expensive. They're going to come in thinking that, solar is not good for my area, whatever these misconceptions are. So our job on day one is to come in, share your origin story, how you were once where they were, and help them overcome those self-limiting beliefs or those perceptions that they come in to the event. Because we're not running 5-day virtual events. We're taking people through transformational experiences. The goal should be, by the time people come into your event and they leave your event, they think differently, they act differently, and they want to do life differently. So day one, that's how we structure the content. It's more storytelling, more helping them overcome those objections. Then day 2, this is where we start getting into the content. So this, you got to remember, that's an hour already taken off just by sharing your story and overcoming some of those objections, right? And so now you can start getting into the content. And then later in the week, there's other things. If you want to go that deep, we can, but there's a whole model to how we structure these events. So it's not necessarily 5 hours of straight teaching. You may only get 2 or 3 hours of straight teaching, because the other parts, there's some really methods that we do to help people get to the finish line.
Okay. Kind of leads us to, if we're thinking about how that time breaks down, is any of that time involved with them asking questions or, of the speaker, or perhaps even networking with other attendees? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. And so what we do with a lot of our events is we'll have multiple ticket tiers, right? And so we'll have maybe a baseline general admission ticket, and then we'll have a higher tier ticket, like a VIP ticket, right? The general, normally that's just for people who just want to get in and hear the information. They just want to get in, hear that, and get the information so they can, make a decision with it. The VIP, that's where we give a little bit more value, right? So that's where we would be giving them Q&A, right? We may do a networking session for them. We may do, build them a workbook of some sort. But normally we limit those to the higher ticket tiers. Now, if you don't want to do all that mumbo jumbo, you don't want to have multiple ticket tiers, you can just go out, have one ticket tier. But yes, we definitely recommend maybe doing 15 to 30 minutes of Q&A. Obviously, the more people in your event, the longer you'll want to do a Q&A. So, if you have, 100 people in your event, you could probably do 30 minutes of Q&A. But as you get to 1,000 people plus, you'll have to maybe do an hour of Q&A, right? So, we definitely do include that. Actually, we do that every day for those people. And people are like, every day? Yeah, because this is where we really build the trust and the credibility with them. When we can step in and answer their biggest questions and help them find clarity, by the end of the event, they're saying, wow, I just learned more this week than I have in years. Thank you, Glenn.
Right. Okay, got it. So while you're bringing up numbers, let's just talk a bit about the attendance challenges we might face. So there are people, definitely for free, and even some for paid, who will book but won't show. And sometimes we may even have a situation where our numbers are so low that if we geared it up to be an interactive event, we may not even have that minimum that would make that possible. So can you take me through what we do in those kind of scenarios? Everything from what messages we send to those people to, the go, no go decision.
Yeah, great question, because a lot of people ask the same thing, right? And so the thing is, it all boils down to the pre-event process, right? So we just want to make sure to nurture these people in a way leading up to the event that builds excitement and, frankly, just makes them want to attend. So just to give you a high level view on our paid events, we often see an 80%-ish show up rate. That could be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the event and the client, but most of the time around an 80% show up rate for paid events. Now, on the flip side, free, totally different ballgame, right? You may only see 20%, 30% on a good event, So it's a totally different beast. But with the paid, we'll switch over to that. We make sure we hit them with all angles leading up to and during the event. What do you mean, Michael? We're texting them, we're emailing them. We'll maybe send a few ringless voicemail drops to their phones. So we're hitting them in every angle. And so we start communication, about 20 to 30 days out. So our promotional period on a lot of these events are about 30 days. So we'll promote these events for about 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. And so as soon as they purchase, they're getting the confirmation, of course. But then after that happens, we're sending them emails, text, and those ringless voicemail drops leading up to the event. And a lot of times we'll do, for example, an email 20 days out, 15 days out, 10 days out. And then once we get closer to the event, it's every single day they're receiving a communication from us, whether it's an email or a text. And then during the event, they're receiving at least 3 communications from us per day. So that would be an email in the morning, an email 1 hour before, an email when we're live, and the same thing with text. And so we spend a lot of money on the text messages and things of that nature, but we know the power it has. And so I would say for anybody building out a virtual event, that's one thing. If you want to do it right, make sure you take time to build out those sequences. Make sure you build time in your plan to really be methodical about what you're sending people and the verbiage you're using leading up to the event, because it could be what makes or break your show up rate.
Mm-hmm. And there are, in each of those very condensed bursts that you're sending, there's an opportunity to highlight different things. So let's say, for example, that the last day of the event, you have someone who's a household name in your space, and they're going to, maybe take part in it, or maybe there's a fireside chat element. You can use one of your messages to talk about that. You can use another message to highlight what's going to be happening on the days leading up to that. You can talk about the things that, people have as outcomes and refer to past attendees that have had a transformative experience. So
Love that.
there's, I want our listeners, and I'm sure they've already, cottoned onto this. You're not just pelting them with the same message over and over. You're switching it up all the time.
Yeah, 100%. And so everything you said is right on spot. And one thing I wanted to highlight there of what you mentioned was using testimonials and, just really using user-generated content as well in your events. So, for example, we'll be taking screenshots of the chats in Zoom. If myself or the speaker says something that resonates with the audience and the chat goes wild, or the chat, is like, man, this is awesome, thank you. So we'll take screenshots of that and share that in the email, so people are like, wow, I missed out by not attending that session. So yes,
sure,
user-generated content is great.
Yeah, or those can even, if you wanted to balloon it into a testimonial, you can use that little thing that they typed in the moment and send them a private message later saying, hey, really appreciated that. Would you mind if we repurpose this and attached your name to it and maybe have a mugshot? This is something that they've already given, but now you're helping them realize that this could be spread farther than just within the confines of the call.
Yeah, 100%. So there's many different things you could add in there, like you mentioned, but the important thing is that you do it and you actually schedule those, because a lot of people and that we work with that come to us, different companies, and they want to run these, and that's their biggest hang up. Is they're like, Michael, we tried running an event, but nobody showed up. And then I look at it, I'm like, well, you didn't have any nurture sequences or anything to really reminder sequences to encourage people to show up. You just ran the event and maybe send them a Google Calendar invite, but you can't rely on that, right? Now, you can use Google Calendar invites to make sure people are aware your event is happening, but you got to have multiple areas. And as fellow marketers here, we all know that the world's pulling at everybody's brain and eyes, right? The world is trying to get everybody's attention. So we got to make sure we're front and center. So show up rates, like we said, on free events are a little lower. So we have to work a little bit harder on the free events to get people to show up. But if you can get them to show up, a lot of times with our process, you can really, really have good conversion. So I don't know, maybe you want to transition to talking about that?
I would love to. And before we do that, though, we're going to take a really quick break. Let me step away for a second to note the information that goes beyond what you're listening to now. I'm talking about our social media presence. On social, you'll see show-related updates about our guests. You'll see what's happening behind the scenes. Or you can simply talk to me. There are already 740 people who have connected with the show's social pages. I love seeing new people follow, and I've really loved how lately a few of you have posted positive comments about the show. It encourages me in making this podcast the best it can be. So find Funnel Reboot on LinkedIn or Instagram or X. Click follow and maybe say hi. Thanks a lot. Let's get back to the show. Yeah. So, Michael, when you talk about conversion, of course, we've had a mini conversion with getting them onto the event and perhaps showing up the majority or every single day of this challenge. But of course, that's part of something larger that we're trying to do in accomplishing a big cap ticket sale from this. So tell me, I guess let's figure, let's put ourselves on the very final day of the event and let's go into what we're talking about as we're wrapping and presenting that call to action for the larger sale. Take us there.
Yeah, and actually, it starts sooner than the final day. Actually, a few days sooner. So what we
Okay.
do is on day 3, we actually run a free application. And so how we position this in the middle of the week is we say, hey, you've been here, you've been committed, you've attended 3 days so far. What we're going to do is we've decided to um, offer this unique opportunity to a select few of people, but you have to apply to hear about the opportunity. And so we'll have them fill out a short application, similar to the survey we talked about they would fill out pre-event. But this application goes a little bit deeper, goes into what's working, what's not working in their business, what their income is, maybe why we should work with them, why they would be a good fit. And so we just do this pre-pitch application and we send that to everybody on day 3. This application, a lot of times we'll see about 50% of people to fill that out. So, if there's 100 people in your event, a lot of times we'll see about 50 people, 60 people-ish fill that out. So 50 to 60%, sometimes a little bit more, a little less. But this allows us to collect more data, right? Because as marketers, we need to be data-driven, and that translates into sales. So this lets us know the most hot candidates and then also the most qualified candidates. So what we do is we pitch a free application on day 4, and we will present that to, day 3, we present a free application to everybody. And those who apply on day 3, we will take them over to a separate call on day 4 to pitch them the unique opportunity. Whatever that unique opportunity is, whether it's a service, a product of some sort, we'll present it only to the applicants on day 4 because some of those people that didn't apply, they just need a little bit more time to warm up to you, your brand, and what you're teaching. So we'll present the application on day 3, and on the day 4 session, we'll tell them, hey, one last chance to apply. This will allow you the chance to hear this special, unique opportunity where we can help you. And then we pitch that opportunity at the end of day 4. I shouldn't say the end of day 4. After the day 4 session, we'll put them in a whole separate room. Then
Okay.
on day 5, I apologize. I'm going to just go through this and then we can
Yeah.
go back and circle on each of these days. On day 5, we'll pitch to everybody one last time, regardless if they applied or not. And so that's kind of the framework of day 3, day 4, and day 5. And that's how we present our offers.
Okay, cool. And yeah, that's a particularly effective under, I would say, two conditions. And you've hinted at both of them. Number one is, uh, does this service or offering that you have some nature to it that makes it scarce? So let's say that you are providing some advisory services. You only have a limited number of hours in the week. And so if you are offering them something and it's represented in time, maybe coaching calls, um, some detailed audits, it's ordinary to understand how that can you can only have so many of those before your time gets gobbled up. So you can kind of lend that to it. Um, Maybe more difficult with something like a product where you have, particularly a digital product where, there is really no limit to the inventory you can give away.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I would say
yeah.
to that, if you have a product that is more personalized to the individual's needs, you may, instead of doing the process I shared, is maybe you would push them to just a personal one-on-one sales call.
Yep.
Right? And so that's something else you could do is instead of doing, they can
Right.
apply. Like on day 3, I would do the application. And then on day 4 and day 5, you're just taking one-on-one calls with people
Yeah.
to, craft those custom plans for them.
Yeah. That's great. And you're striking while the iron's hot. The other one is we've been talking about diverse audiences, and there may be cases where even with your efforts to make the content geared for the senior decision maker, um, let's say that you're selling something that isn't just to sole proprietors, it is bought by businesses, and the person who has signed up and paid for your event is the scout in the company. They are not the senior decision maker, but they are, there to learn and to hopefully guide a final purchase that their overall company will make. So in that case, it's not fair to divide the number of applications that you got by the entire audience and say that was my success rate. Those people were never going to be able to snap up that or give the application. However, like you said, if you shunt them to a personal call, then you can understand that's how their org works, and then they'll volunteer the name of the person that you can approach for that offer.
Exactly. And that's something that we found out actually in the beginning stages of when we started doing virtual events is there was a lot of times, personal conversations and a lot of nurture that even had to happen after the event for some of these people to convert in whatever service that you're providing, whether it is, for a bigger business owner or, a smaller individual who doesn't have a business yet and you're selling something totally different. So just know the nature of the industry will vary on how these results come about. But yes, a lot of times the nurture process on the back end may take a little longer, right? You may have to meet multiple times with people. You may have to have longer email sequences post event. There's many different things we can go into. But I love what you're saying. You hit it right on the head.
Tell me, do you ever see, Michael, cases where the running of these events can be twinned with physical meetups or with someone figuring out I could actually run these and make a bit of a tour itinerary for myself where I'm, zooming through, all the cities on one coast? Are there ever times where you can, because you're building longer term relationships by doing this, and I would imagine those people, if you say to them, hey, we are all going to the same conference, how would you like me to tack on a workshop to that? Would you be game for, hanging in that city for another day? Or how about we all meet up? Or any other thing that you might want to do to raise the ROI from this activity even higher?
Oh, 100%. And so these events are really good. These virtual events, I should say, are really good at building community. Very good at building community because you're getting people together and they're growing together. They're experiencing new things together. And so, yeah, Glenn, a lot of times there's a few different angles here, right? A lot of times, if we are running a virtual event, we'll tack on and add on a in-person event ticket with that virtual event. So let
Right.
me give you an example. One of my clients, she is running a small conference in June.
Okay.
We is at the time of recording this December. So she's going to use her virtual events in January, February, March, April to get people to come to her conference. And so people who buy a ticket to the virtual event, they're going to get a ticket to the in-person event. Now,
Yeah.
will all those people show up to the in-person? No, we know that. But there's a higher chance of her filling up her event because she is selling these 2-in-1 combos. Now, we also have done what you've talked about, Glenn, is like for our higher ticket tiers, we have done meetups. And actually this same client, what she's doing is she's selling these tickets to our virtual event. And she's saying, hey, everybody come meet down in Atlanta, Georgia. We're actually doing a pre-event meetup where we can come hang out, for an evening. We'll do some teaching. It's more of a workshop / networking opportunity. And so, yes, that's right on the money there. You can definitely find ways to interweave this with other products, especially if those are in-person events. That can be a great entry into that.
Yeah, she sounds like an excellent example of what you had said earlier when we brought up that question of how do I fill 5 hours of content? If you are like she is, by the very fact that she is having this pre event meetup and a full blown workshop, you can tell that she has become so much of an expert and has gathered around herself people who appreciate her expertise, that the 5 hours is really only the appetizer. There's a whole lot more that she can give. And to that point, she's selling access to herself for just showing up and then people literally, playing Jeopardy with her brain and asking her all kinds of questions that she will, I'm certain, know the answers to.
Yeah, and I like what you said just a second ago. You mentioned that people pay for proximity. You didn't say it that way, but you did.
Uh
A
huh.
lot of times people will pay for that. So the reason why you can charge a premium on these is if you have the desired information that people want or need, they will pay a premium just to get in rooms with people like you. And so for what you're talking a lot about, Glenn, I like you're talking about, like, senior management, leadership of a company. People will pay to get in rooms with other leaders, with other management parts of the
Hmm.
company. People will pay to get
Yeah.
in those rooms. So, yeah, she does a very good job at creating those environments for people, and you can too. And it doesn't have to be anything big. Don't think you or the company you work for as a marketing team. You don't have to build out this massive conference and try to fill that up. It could be a 10, 15, 20 person meetup, where you get people together in a, like you said, around a conference you guys are all attending. You can make
Yeah.
these as simple or as elaborate as you want. Maybe start out simple and then grow as your virtual events grow.
What I've witnessed with these things is there is a beautiful 80-20 effect. And so people will appreciate that, there are people who go to Starbucks and only buy the bottom end coffee. And there are other people who will go to Starbucks and will pay for the actual Starbucks espresso machine. So, and that's like add three zeros on top of, that humble little coffee. And the same thing is true of these. When you have organized the tiers of offers that you have, and you really can back them up with solid results, you will find that, as you say, even something like a 10 or 15 person group that is out of that large audience, some of whom have paid you nothing, but to find those 10 to 15, the revenue you will get back will more than pay for all of the apparatus you needed to build the entire audience.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And so, in short, these can be built out in customizable ways, right? Don't think that what we're talking about here for you, your company, is a one size fit all, because it's not. What I'm going to do in my company is not going to work in Glenn's company. And that's why I
Yeah,
love marketing. That's why I love sales, is because it is an ebbs and flow, right? It's like water. It's constantly moving in different directions. So you have to figure out how you want to run these for yours, right? The foundation is set. You
yeah.
get to build the type of house you want on the foundation. So yeah, that's why I love virtual events, my guys. You customize them and you get to build something from scratch every time, which for me as a marketer is is really fun because I get to create, and that's when I'm in my element.
Sure. But to keep your sanity on it, we've talked about these numbers, we've talked about where people are proximate to, we have to track all this stuff. And so you've given us a few systems so far that we need to keep in mind. But can you tell me, when it comes to people that you work with, what do you find are the best stacks that they have? We've already mentioned a CRM, so I imagine that is a non-negotiable. But just take us through, Michael, what other types of systems they need to think about having, or that they may need to integrate with each other to do what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it depends on how elaborate you want to go. So I will preface by saying that you can go super simple or you can go super elaborate. So on the elaborate end, you are going to need a CRM, like we mentioned, but you're also going to need, some kind of funnel software, because I'm a true believer, in, actually building out a whole funnel process for these events, not just for your company, but for each event. We built a whole funnel process. So definitely want to, find a funnel building platform where you can easily take people through the sales process. When I say the sales process, I'm meaning, are you going to do upsells and downsells after they buy a ticket? Are you going to add on order bumps? Are you going to we got to find ways to increase our average order value, right? And so, having a decent funnel building software is one that I'm a big fan of. So, the CRM, funnel building software, and then if you don't have an all-in-one solution that does all of this, like I know a lot of people are moving to Go High Level, or the High Level platform, which is really great. But if you don't have that, you want to make sure that you have, your basics, the email,
Yep.
the text message platforms. If you don't have text messaging in your business or for your company right now, I would suggest, definitely doing so. We use simple texting or mobile text alerts. Those are two that we use that are very friendly and easy to use. Then we, of course, Zapier to connect these all together if you need them.
Yep.
The ManyChat for the social media automations. That's one that we use. For ringless voicemail, we'll use Sly Broadcast. So you can go to slybroadcast.com to get those ringless voicemails. If you use a software like Go High Level, they'll have all of this built into one platform, so you won't need all these separate softwares. But
Right.
if you aren't using that, those are some recommendations on a tech stack. There's probably a few other small little softwares here and there for some nuanced
Yeah.
things, but those are the high level.
Sure. And we'd already mentioned Zoom. And so I would imagine that we're on a premium license of Zoom.
Yeah, just depending on the size of your event, right? So
Right.
you are going to need a premium for the time, right? So you're going to need more than 40 minutes, because I think that's what Zoom limits the free meetings, right? So you are going to need that. And then as you get more attendees, you're going to have to upgrade and get the add-ons for Zoom. So, we don't do Zoom webinar, just so you guys are aware, unless it's
Yep.
thousands of people. We just do Zoom meetings. There's
Yeah.
power in face-to-face interaction, so we keep it that way so we can get to know our audience, and it's cheaper also. So Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
Now, if you are going super basic, I've seen some people just stream directly to a Facebook group, using something like a Ecamm or a StreamYard. I prefer Ecamm over StreamYard. That's just my preference. But, there's that instead of using Zoom. But you can also shoot Zoom feeds right over into Facebook if you ever wanted to use a Facebook group to stream your content. So those are just some tips there.
Sure. And just so people who aren't that technical don't freak out, I would imagine that, while they may need to pay for licenses, they don't have to be the ones who roll up their sleeves and do all this, API integration and setup that, they can choose firms like yours to outsource the actual implementation.
Yeah, 100%. And there's not only myself, there's several other people out there that do that. But yeah, so Glenn, we do this for people. We build it out, where we come in and set up everything from scratch, so you don't have to, which is really really fun, because we get to come in, learn your business, and then help you set up this as you want it. But then also coach you through the process, so you're not doing it alone. But I'm sure, other agencies out there that could help you. But yeah, you're 100% right. Don't get scared of all
Right.
these terms.
Don't let that
Yeah,
stop
don't
you.
let it
Yeah.
stop you. And like I said, if you're a smaller team and you're just trying to figure this out, go simple at first. Just get your steps in. Just get that take action is what I'm saying, right? So don't let anything
Yeah.
distract you from doing that. But yeah, we're here to help you if at all needed.
And as we wrap up, we're kind of coming back to that thing that we said right at the top. And I hope that the listeners, you know, let's say they've stuck with us this far, that they know what you meant by this will help speed up your sales cycle. Um, but I think just to make it extra clear, you know, for folks who haven't done this before, if they think about the type of deep relationships that, let's say they're in a service business, that they have with their clients, and how they know that they've had an impact on those clients' businesses. What we're doing here is we're really just shifting a lot of that relationship formation that probably happened post purchase, and we're moving it earlier in the customer journey so that they can try before they buy, in a way. Would you have anything to add to that?
No, I like that statement. You said try before you buy. Yeah. But people, yeah, each company is different. Each company has a sales cycle that's, sometimes people have sales processes where it takes 6 months to actually, take somebody from start to finish. Some may be 2 weeks. It just totally depends. But yeah, ultimately, if done right, this can speed it up for you. And I think I want to say this very lightly because, each industry is different, each company is different. But I think this could change the way, your sales process works if you implement these on a schedule. And so I would ask you, how can you take this information we talked about today and implement it into your business if you feel like it's a good fit? And just start going down the road of discovery on this. Because for your sales team, or just for yourself, if you're a one man show or a one woman show, this
Hmm.
can create a lot of new conversations. Taking people on this try before you buy, it really is unique because you have whole new different conversations than you would have prior. And is this, like we said, the only route to doing sales and marketing? No. But I would beg you and plead that you would just at least ask yourself, how can I implement this for myself or the companies I work for? Because it's powerful and it's changed not only my life, but a lot of our clients' lives as well and their businesses. So the question is,
Yeah,
how can you implement this into what you're doing today?
yeah, I like that, and I like the introspection because the event itself is really a container, but what you are doing by putting that container there and looking inside for how you will fill it, you're answering deep seated questions about your value proposition, about what you mean for your ideal client profile. These are things you should have nailed, but it's a good opportunity if you haven't to take yourself through this whole process in their through their eyes. And so it does it that way. You'd mentioned earlier that this is something that, has been pretty pivotal in your life. Michael, tell me, what is it about your particular background that lent itself to getting into this and, having the impact that you are?
Yeah, and that's I never knew and would thought I would be in this industry, if I'm going to be honest. And how it all started, just in a short nutshell, is I was in college, just gotten married, and we did not have a lot of money. And so one of my
Hmm.
friends came to me and said, "Hey, I'm needing some tech help." And I don't know, maybe some of you are like me. You can do a little bit of everything, and that was me. I was like, I don't know much about systems and processes and softwares, but I can try. And I tried it. And then I went on this journey with my friend, building this company, and this was one of the avenues that we implemented, these virtual events. In short, we implemented this, and I pretty much took his business from doing no income to $750,000 in 10 months just through virtual events. And so that's why I'm privy to it. And that's why I am really, just persuaded by the power of this, is because I've seen it firsthand 5 years ago when I was just starting out. And I've seen it change his business. I've seen it change many other people's businesses. So I'm not just somebody that watched a webinar on virtual events. We've ran 100 plus of these challenges, and we've ran hundreds of webinars and online seminars over the past 5 years.
Very cool. Michael, if people want to reach out, find out how you do it, where would you send them?
Yeah, you can go to thefunnelpros.com, and that's just going to be a place where you can go and book a call with me. And I'm big about personal connection. So you can book a call and see if you're a good fit for this, because I can come in and just show you, how this would work for your business. But then also at the same time, I'll give you maybe some tips, tricks. If you choose to work with us, if you don't, I'll just try to help you. I'm big on personal connection. So you can go to thefunnelpros.com. Go ahead, let's chat, and just let me know. Let me know that you're from Glenn's show. I would love to maybe even go back and tell him, hey, I met some of your audience.
Right. Yeah. And so we'll put that in the show notes so you guys can link straight to it through the Funnel Reboot site. Mike, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Glenn. Had a great time.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.